The day I discovered my own grandchildren had forged my signature and stolen millions from my company, I did not call the police. I did not raise my voice. I did not even tell them I knew. Instead, I smiled and congratulated them. They thought they had won. They thought decades of my hard work now belonged to them. What they did not know was that I had prepared for betrayal years before it ever happened. Hidden inside a lawyer's safe was a secret that would turn their victory into the most humiliating defeat of their lives. By the end of the week, every dollar they thought they owned would disappear, and the entire family would learn who the true owner really was. My name is Walter Harrison, and at 78 years old, I believed I had already experienced every challenge life could throw at me. I built my company from nothing. When I started, I had an old truck, a small rented garage, and a dream that seemed impossible. While others spent weekends relaxing, I worked. While others slept, I planned. Over 5 decades, that tiny business grew into a multi-million-dollar corporation employing hundreds of people. Every sacrifice I made was for one reason. I wanted my family to have opportunities I never had. I wanted my children and grandchildren to inherit not just wealth, but values, discipline, and respect. For years, I believed my grandchildren shared those values. They attended family dinners, celebrated holidays with me, and often talked about continuing the family legacy. They seemed interested in learning how the company operated. Whenever they asked questions, I happily answered them. I introduced them to managers, accountants, and legal advisors. I felt proud seeing the younger generation taking interest in what I had built. Looking back now, I realized they were not studying the business because they admired it. They were studying it because they wanted control over it. The first sign that something was wrong appeared quietly. One morning, my accountant brought several documents requiring clarification. The signatures looked like mine, but I did not remember signing them. At first, I blamed age and memory. After all, I handled countless documents every month. However, the strange paperwork continued appearing. Financial transfers were approved without my knowledge. Ownership adjustments were processed without my authorization. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Something was happening behind my back. Rather than accusing anyone, I decided to investigate quietly. Experience had taught me that emotions often destroy the truth. Facts reveal it. I hired a respected private investigator and a forensic document expert. For weeks, they reviewed records, emails, financial statements, and security footage. I expected to uncover a dishonest employee or an external scammer. What I never expected was the names that appeared in the final report. The evidence was devastating. My own grandchildren had forged my signature. They had carefully created documents transferring ownership interests and financial assets into accounts they secretly controlled. Every step had been planned. Every detail had been rehearsed. They believed my age made me vulnerable. They assumed I would never notice the missing assets until it was too late. Reading the report felt like being stabbed by the very people I had spent my life protecting. The investigation continued, uncovering even more disturbing information. They had convinced several relatives that they were helping manage company affairs because my health was supposedly declining. They spread subtle rumors suggesting I was no longer capable of making important decisions. Family members who trusted them unknowingly became part of the deception. Watching people I loved manipulated so easily was almost as painful as the financial betrayal itself. One evening, I sat alone in my office, reviewing decades of photographs. There were pictures of birthdays, graduations, weddings, and vacations. In every image, I saw smiling faces and memories I treasured. I found myself wondering where everything had gone wrong. Had I focused too much on building wealth and not enough on teaching gratitude? Had success created entitlement instead of appreciation? Those questions haunted me, but I knew self-pity would solve nothing. As the weeks passed, my grandchildren grew increasingly confident. They began speaking about future investments and expansion plans as though they already owned the company. Their arrogance became difficult to hide. During family gatherings, they discussed luxury homes, expensive vacations, and business strategies. Listening to them was painful, yet I remained calm. I smiled, nodded, and allowed them to believe their plan was succeeding. That smile confused everyone because they expected resistance, not silence. What nobody knew was that years earlier, I had created a legal structure designed to protect the company from fraud. My attorney had encouraged me to prepare for situations involving deception, coercion, or unauthorized transfers. Together, we established a confidential trust containing a powerful clause. If ownership was ever obtained through fraudulent means, every transferred share would automatically revert to a separate beneficiary chosen years before. Only my lawyer and I knew the identity of that beneficiary. The day eventually arrived when my grandchildren believed they had secured complete control. They organized a family celebration and invited relatives to witness what they described as the beginning of a new era. Laughter filled the room. Glasses were raised in celebration. One grandchild even thanked me publicly for creating opportunities for future generations. The irony was almost unbelievable. They were celebrating a victory that did not actually exist. 3 days later, I invited the entire family to company headquarters for an important announcement. Curiosity spread quickly. Everyone arrived expecting a routine meeting. My grandchildren entered confidently, wearing expensive suits and carrying themselves like successful executives. They sat near the front of the conference room, smiling proudly. They had no idea what was about to happen. When my attorney entered, carrying several thick folders, the atmosphere immediately changed. He began presenting evidence collected during the investigation. Security footage appeared on large screens. Financial records were displayed in detail. Forensic experts explained how signatures had been forged. Witness statements confirmed unauthorized activities. One piece of evidence after another destroyed every excuse before it could even be spoken. The room fell silent. Family members stared in disbelief. My grandchildren attempted to deny everything at first. Then they blamed misunderstandings. Then they blamed advisors. As more evidence appeared, their confidence evaporated. Faces that once displayed arrogance now showed panic. Relatives who had supported them began distancing themselves. The truth was unfolding publicly, and there was no escape. Then came the moment nobody expected. My attorney revealed the existence of the trust. He explained the anti-fraud clause and its automatic enforcement. Because the ownership transfers were fraudulent, every share they believed they controlled was immediately revoked. Gasps echoed throughout the conference room. Shock spread across every face. Years of planning collapsed within seconds. My grandchildren sat frozen as attorneys distributed official legal documents confirming the reversal. Their celebration had become a disaster. The fortune they thought belonged to them vanished before their eyes. Yet, the biggest surprise was still waiting. My attorney opened one final folder and revealed the identity of the true owner. Decades earlier, after my beloved wife passed away, I created a charitable foundation in her honor. Quietly and legally, I transferred control of the company into that foundation through a long-term succession plan. The organization funded scholarships, hospitals, community centers, and educational programs. The company never truly belonged to me anymore. It belonged to a mission larger than any individual. The room became completely silent. Some relatives cried. Others lowered their heads in shame. My grandchildren looked stunned. They had spent months stealing something that was never theirs to take. Their greed blinded them to the truth. They focused so much on acquiring wealth that they never stopped to understand its purpose. One grandchild finally asked why I had never confronted them earlier. I looked directly at him and explained that immediate punishment teaches fear, but consequences teach character. Had I stopped them on the first day, they would have learned only caution. By allowing their deception to reach its conclusion, they learned accountability. Actions always create consequences, and eventually every hidden truth comes into the light. As the meeting ended, I stood and prepared to leave. The same people who once believed I was weak now understood exactly why patience can be powerful. I walked through the lobby feeling lighter than I had in years. The betrayal still hurt, but I no longer carried its weight. Justice had spoken louder than anger ever could. Months later, the foundation expanded several scholarship programs and opened new community projects. Thousands of people benefited from resources that otherwise might have been lost to greed. Watching those lives change reminded me that true wealth is measured not by what we keep, but by what we give away. My grandchildren lost millions, but money was never their greatest loss. Their greatest loss was trust. Wealth can be rebuilt. Businesses can recover. Reputations and relationships are much harder to restore. In chasing a fortune, they sacrificed something far more valuable. Today, whenever people ask why I smiled after discovering the betrayal, my answer is simple. I smiled because I already knew the ending. They thought they were stealing my legacy. In reality, they were exposing their own character. The company survived. The foundation thrived. My wife's memory continues helping countless people, and the lesson remains unforgettable. They forged my signature and tried to steal my millions. I smiled because the true owner had been chosen long before they ever began their scheme. Greed convinced them they had won. Patience revealed they had already lost. In the end, the fortune remained where it could do the most good, and the people who tried to steal it were forced to face the consequences of their own choices. Sometimes, the strongest revenge is not taking something back. It is watching the truth reveal itself